right? What kind of women would put themselves in that kind of situation?
Well, if a man is a skillful manipulator, then it's not that difficult to get the women to put themselves
Oh,
in that
whoa, whoa,
position.
whoa, 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 whoa!
I said if.
Slow
I
down.
said if.
Slow down.
Okay.
Slow down. Slow down, right? First of all, point number one. In order to manipulate someone, that person has to be in a manipulatable state.
Yes,
Right?
must have some kind of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Makes them manipulate.
Yeah. So I mean, there's more going on, or they must they must have a lack of they must have a lack of knowledge, because
So being vulnerable and having a lack of knowledge
yes,
are two different things.
yes, I I I I'm not arguing that point.
Okay, I just thought you made a connection between the two.
Well, what I'm saying that a lack of knowledge is far more destructive than being vulnerable, right? Because you can increase your knowledge in a relatively simple manner, but the process of reversing vulnerability is much more complicated.
Yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree with that. Yes.
So therefore, someone who allows themselves to be manipulated,
Is still a victim.
that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, you keep finishing my sentences with things that I would never say. The point I make is that you need two elements, or the different point I'm going to make, because I can't make the original point because it was blocked. Okay? It sabotaged the conversation. Is that two elements of compliance are required. You require a manipulator who understands what they are doing, and you require a person to be manipulated who is not aware of what is happening. One of which is a state of increased knowledge, and the other is a deficit of knowledge.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with... It has very little to do with essential vulnerability, but has a lot to do with actual intelligence. Because an intelligent person should be aware that A, they're being manipulated, or B, that they could be manipulated and should take steps to look after themselves in those kinds of situations. If you just leave it to chance, or you walk into situations unaware, then you present yourself with a large number of potential problems, some of which you make yourself and some of which are just environmental.
Can I say something?
No.
It seems to me that you are putting the responsibility for something we don't know if it happened or didn't happen. Okay, we're speaking hypothetically. But it seems to me that you're putting some part of the responsibility for the situation onto the victim.
Well, I will repeat. I will. Sorry, one second. I will repeat what I said. Okay, just so it's clear. That in order for the manipulation to occur, one person must have a higher level of knowledge,
Yes.
and the other person must have a lower level of knowledge.
I understood what you said. I just didn't understand why you said it. Because it's like saying that, in order for a murder to occur, one person has to kill somebody and the other person has to be killed. I mean, it's obvious, right? I just didn't understand why you said that.
Because it's very important to understand the mental states of people. That if somebody allows something to happen to themselves.
Oh, thank you very much. That is marvelous.
Yeah, don't misunderstand. I mean, I'm not. I get your point that it looks like might be blaming the victim. but I'm not blaming the victim. What I'm doing is saying that the victim has an experience which allows them to be a victim.
Yes.
I'm not blaming the victim.
Yeah.
And in understanding that, we can probably lay some of the blame not on the victim but on the people around the victim for not educating them a little bit better about the situation that they're in. So I'm not in any sense of, oh, it's the victim's fault, she was wearing a short skirt anyway, I'm not blaming the victim, right? But what I am saying is I would lay some of the blame on the people around the victim who did not
educate
not educate the person, which might be family or friends, because it's the job of your network to support you and ensure that you are not victimized.
I agree with the point that everybody should be educated in this area of how not to get manipulated by predators, but obviously, well, that's what they are, because they prey on people who don't know any better or who are emotionally vulnerable.
That's an interesting word, isn't it? Prey.
Yeah. So.
Because you've got prey as in, well, there's a deeper point there, which is that the nature of good and evil is a battle within all people. Then it's important to understand how that affects both the predator and the victim. And there's a case for arguing that I'm just saying there's a case, right?
Okay.
There's a case for arguing very often that the predator is also the victim.
Oh, the predator starts out as a victim, I think. I think you can become a predator without being victimized at some point in your life, probably mainly in early childhood. But there comes a point where you become an adult and you have to take responsibility for the action. So I'm at a point where I don't care how much the predator has been victimized. As long as they're an adult, they have to take responsibility for their action.
Yeah, but then you have to add to that the psychological states of dependence and repetition, which cause most people in the position of being a victim to not ever change what they do.
Well, I don't know if that's most people or just some people, because I don't have any statistics on that. But
it's the nature of habit.
Part of what I was talking about.
Okay, let's take one example. Let's take criminals. Okay. Okay. So most offenders who you agreed started off as victims. Okay. Mm-hmm. Most criminals are repeat offenders. Mm-hmm. See, the repetition compulsion is a key element of the predator-victim. Let's call it relationship.
But that's what I was talking about. That's what I said when I said that victims should find help so that they don't repeat the cycle again and again, so that they don't fall prey again to a different manipulator or to a different predator. That's why they should seek help. The same thing for predators, but predators mostly will not seek help because they are not in a position where they need help to feel better themselves unless they're put in that situation by somebody.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the same. I think a lot of the same thing applies to victims as well.
Yeah, well, no, because victims usually suffer in a situation of a victim, so they're more likely to search help. But the perpetrators usually don't suffer in a situation of being evil, because they're the ones that are getting all the goods. I mean, that's whatever his name is. Right?
Can I just make a counterpoint? That perpetrators don't suffer when they do evil. I I just want to say, you can continue. I just want to say I disagree with that one point.
Okay. Well,
I think they do. I think they are. I think they are suffering. That's why they're doing the evil, because they're suffering.
if that guy does what he supposedly does, right? Or walk around energetically draining women or whatever he does, something like that.
We don't know if he does it. We don't know. We don't know.
Practically, never mind.
Yeah, whatever. But if he does that, let's use him as an example. He's not suffering because of it.
Well,
He's freaking getting all the goods that he wants to get, right?
no, I would, no. I would argue that, his actions are symbolic of the fact that he is suffering. His negative actions are examples of him suffering, and his taking his suffering and causing suffering to more people because he himself is suffering. And it's not good. It's not good at all. But I don't think that there's a lot of... I don't know. I mean, you get into pleasure, and that's chemicals in the brain, and that's all complex, right? So I question whether or not people who do bad things get a lot of pleasure. I think they're suffering as well.
I understand that on a deeper level they're suffering, and that's why they're doing it, because they're trying to satisfy some kind of emptiness that they cannot satisfy in any other way.
Yeah, which is not pleasurable.
But my point is, this is what works for them. That's why they repeat it again and again and again. It works for them short term, right?
Well, I think that the same argument applies to victims, that people don't look for help unless they've got people around them who can point them in the right direction.